My name is Tate with Train to Win. Welcome back to another video. This is part 2 to our series of basics of programming. If you came from part 1, super compensation, today we're going to be going over progressive overload and how to implement progressive overload properly within our programming to achieve our super compensation. If you're watching this video and you haven't seen part 1, I recommend stopping this video now and going back to watch our part 1 video. It's a short, quick, to the point video, but in order to understand what we're going over and why, you do need to understand what super compensation is. So with all that being said, let's jump right into it. We're going to talk about how we can implement progressive overload within these said variables here into our programming to achieve the desired adaptation or super compensation. So again, what is progressive overload? Progressive overload is the slight incremental increase of training stimulus within our training program itself. So in simple terms, doing more than we had done prior, doing more workload than we had done prior. This can be broken down on a week basis, day basis, month basis, however you want to go about it. But for the sake of simplicity, we're going to discuss how we can simply progressively overload our volume, intensity, density, as well as our frequency. So volume, prime example, say we're training a big movement like a squat, and we want to progressively overload our squats. Say within week 1 of our training, we have one set of 10 programmed out. To progressively overload, simply all we have to do is more volume than we did the week prior. So it can simply be adding 10 pounds of bar weight. So say we worked at 100 pounds here for our one set of 10. Now next week we're working at 110 pounds. Or we could simply add another set. So say we have our 100 pounds that we're working with, and now we want to work with 2 sets of 10 at 100 pounds. So to give you some perspective there, if we're doing 100 pounds for a set of 10, you can multiply 100 times 10. That's going to give us 1,000 pounds of total volume for that training day. Next week, we then go 2 sets of 10. We literally upped our volume by 1,000 pounds. Now we're at 2,000 pounds that we did within that training day. That's how we progressively overload with our volume. With our intensity, this can be a little more tricky. And we're going to get deeper into intensity with a future video discussing what we call Prelipin's chart. Prelipin's chart is a great tool that we use as coaches to utilize the right percentages for the right set rep schemes. But again, to keep it simple, for simple terms, intensity, say we're working on a percentage. The way we're going to progressively overload with our intensity, say our 1 rep max is that 100 pounds. For example, that's what we can do for a single rep. Say we start our training working at 80% of that 100 pounds, which would be at 80 pounds. Then the next week, we go to 82.5%. Then we go to 85%. We're incrementally increasing the intensity or increasing the weight week by week. Intensity, that's a basic way that we can progressively overload there. Density, again, referring back to a previous video, density is defined by the amount of workload done in an allotted amount of time. So say we have 4 different exercises, we get it done in 30 minutes to complete our overall workload. Now, if we want to progressively overload here, we maintain the same workload that we had within our previous training day, and we decrease this time. So, say we subtract 5 minutes and finish it in 25 minutes instead, we then achieved progressive overload within our density. Frequency is among the most simple to implement to achieve progressive overload. Again, frequency is defined by the amount of times that we're making it into the gym itself. So again, for example, say we're making it into the gym 3 times per week. If we want to progressively overload with our frequency, we simply throw in another training day. Now, we train 4 times per week. That's how we progressively overload. Again, how do you measure how much progressive overload that you should implement within your training program? You want to take small, little incremental steps to see how your body responds. If you're unsure how to do this, we highly recommend seeking professional help, because if you do implement way too much overall stimulus, we can see a degenerative effect. We can see an undesired training response where we no longer see supercompensation. We actually begin to degrade ourselves down if we do throw way too much stimulus our way. Way too much or implementing a lot more doesn't always equate to more results. So small little incremental changes within our workload is what's going to get us seeing consistent supercompensation within our training regimen. Again, this has just been a real simple breakdown. We're going to get into the deeper ins and outs of all this information when it comes to periodization, different methodologies within our programming. Next week, we're going to be talking about Prelipin's chart, diving a lot deeper into intensity and how we go about implementing intensity within our programming. So more detailed videos are coming. And again, if you're watching this in the future, we do have other series or other videos out building on all this information. Again, my name has been Tate. I'm with Train to Win. Thanks for watching.